Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing my sixth mock draft in our mock draft series. We had to take a little hiatus there, so we appreciate anybody waiting patiently for this next mock draft here. But we also have a fun announcement as well before we get into this mock draft. We actually have our first sponsor of the video. Click the link down below to go to BetUS if you like sports betting for March Madness or NFL. Once the NFL season comes up, you like bet on the ponies or just like betting on I don't know, online casino gambling. So hit the link down below. They're doing a 125% match bonus for everybody to join it for the first time. So with that being said, let's get into my mock draft here. This is going to be a fun one. We had a little bit of time. We've had the combine go on, and the free agency also started as well since the last time. Actually, I think I've done the mock draft here. And I think there are going to be some changes here. But once again, going through the combine and now watching through the pro days, I just keep getting reminded how amazing this class is. Like there's not too much, I think, changing overall. I can see guys being taken 12th, being taken towards the end of the first round. It just depended on where teams find them on their board here. So let's get started here. The first pick now for sure with Justin Fields being traded to Pittsburgh. This is going to be a quarterback at least. I'm sticking with Caleb Williams. Don't see why it wouldn't be Caleb Williams. And so then moving on here, Washington, they're going to be picking a quarterback. I am going to go with Jayden Daniels on this one. I think that they might see a little bit more of an upside there. To me, I know you're a little bit darker on Drake Maye than I am. I more buy into the argument of kind of what Jayden Daniels can go and do with his legs and the dual threat capability more than what Drake Maye can do. And so
yeah, I mean, to put my take in perspective there, I think you look at Jayden Daniels and he's 24, Drake Maye's 21. I think if you compare them as 21-year-old prospects, Drake Maye definitely has more physical tools. It's just right now those tools aren't put together. A lot of people like to use the golf analogy, and sorry to hijack you so early on, but like a lot of people use the golf analogy, like Drake Maye has all the clubs, he just doesn't know when to use the pitching wedge and when to use the driver. Whereas Jayden Daniels, it already has a lot of that refinement in his game. So
and you know who can teach him that? Jared Mayo at the New England Patriots. I have them drafting Drake Maye here. I thought very hard about potential trade now. Obviously, Minnesota Vikings traded up for the 23rd pick with the Houston Texans. Now they have 2 first-round picks. But I was also seeing reports, though, that the Patriots and Commanders were going to be staying put at 2 and 3 and selecting quarterbacks here just because of just where these prospects are at. So I still think that these 3 picks are – well, for sure these 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks. It's just going to depend on who they are. I think that it is still going to be the Patriots. You can also go here. I know Marvin Harrison Jr. is not doing his pro day. I think once again, I think that's a business decision. I don't think it's anything else. I have seen plenty of stuff on tape over the past 3 years to say that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the number 1 receiver. Nothing against Malik Neighbors, who any other class, I think he'd be up there in that kind of Jamar Chase-esque kind of category. But Marvin Harrison Jr., I think prospect-wise, is just at that other elite level. So I have them going here with Marvin Harrison Jr. So up until this point, this has been pretty vanilla, I think, on what a lot of the other mock drafts that I've done, probably a lot of the other mock drafts that other people had done, so to say, in a very real scenario here. This is where I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So if you're the Chargers here, they've moved on from Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So now I think Quentin Johnson is their best receiver as of right now. And that's not saying much. And so maybe Josh Palmer. You can make that argument here. So where they're sitting at now, they know they're going to be guaranteed either Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. And I think a team that is wanting to move up just to secure the guy that they want, it's going to be the Tennessee Titans here. I think that they actually trade up here with the Los Angeles Chargers, give up a measly fourth-round pick just to ensure that they get Joe Alt, solidify that offensive line. The Titans have already made a bunch of great moves with the offensive line of the past couple of seasons, drafting Peter Skoronski last year, who was one of the better offensive linemen in general, but definitely one of the better left guards. But then they've also signed Lloyd Cushenberry as well to a 4-year deal for center. I think that you then go and get Joe Alt, solidify that line. You are now protecting Will Levis. He's got the best line in front of him. Well, I guess he's ever had as a pro, but it's only entering his 2nd year. But still, best offensive line that he's had as a pro. And if you're the Chargers, you get a little bit extra draft capital here. I think it was 7 for 104. Nothing too much. Tennessee, I think, will gladly give up that 4th-round pick just to make sure that they go get Joe Alt. And I think they want to just secure that spot because there are teams here that maybe will entice the Chargers, like the Jets maybe would want to trade up. They really want to solidify that offensive line. I know they've made some moves. Vikings, Denver, Raiders. Maybe if they'd want to go trade up and get an offensive line. I don't know. I'm just talking just to make sure that they can just ensure that they get the number one offensive lineman here. Here now with the Giants, I have them going with Malik Neighbors here, and then I follow that up with the Chargers getting Rome Odunze. Giants here, I think they're just going best player available, and you just go look at who's on the board right now. Malik Neighbors falls to them at 6. I think that's absolutely perfect. I think if Drake Maye falls to them, I could see them taking it. I think if Joe Alt falls to them, I could see them potentially going that route as well. I say that, though, the Giants, who did they just sign? I apologize for not knowing that off the top of my head. But they did just get an offensive lineman here. They've done a lot. Jermaine Elminor as well. They've also done some other offensive line moves I really like as well. So they will probably skip on the offensive line for this first pick, especially then also with Malik Neighbors is kind of a moot point. Then that's why then I go to the Chargers here. That's why I actually think then they can trade back those 2 spots because they know they're going to go get Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors. Both are I would say are different-ish receivers, but still like 1A type receivers. It's honestly, both those guys come in and are the number one receiver in the receiving room for both those organizations. So now here with the Falcons, they have made a lot of offseason moves in the receiver room as well. And I am curious on what route that they end up going with here. I think there's a couple different ways that they could go. They could obviously just stay here and take the best defensive player that they want. But there's also going to be teams that are going to want to move up potentially. And I actually am going to go that route. I'm actually going to go up and cause a trade here. I do believe that Denver is going to trade up here. And I think that they're actually in a very unique spot here with Atlanta because Atlanta already has 2 third-round picks. And the Broncos only have a 3rd-round pick. But what they do have are a lot of day 3 picks. And I think for a team like Atlanta, who might potentially lose some veterans that they just couldn't be able to re-sign, like Calais Campbell, so to say, and they want to just go try and find and rebuild this team, make it a very young team around Kirk Cousins. I think that they would be willing to take multiple day 3 picks, so like 121, 145, and then 147 as well, or 136 and 147. And hey, this trade will likely be accepted. I think that's a fair trade. And then if you're Denver, you're trading up. You want to make sure that you go get the quarterback that you want. I have J.J. McCarthy as the number 4 quarterback here. A lot of people are probably going to say this is too early for J.J. McCarthy. I probably agree with you. But I think if you're Denver, though, if you kind of go look at this team, they're in a rebuilding mode here now. So they need to go and find their quarterback, a guy that Sean Payton can mold and grow. And to be honest, J.J. McCarthy, I think if there's a guy with a question mark here, we know what you're going to get with Michael Penix. You know what you're going to get with Bo Nix. You most likely know what you're going to get with Spencer Rattler. This is definitely way too early for Spencer Rattler. And I'm just saying that now, though. But J.J. McCarthy probably is the most unique question marks on what he can provide to the team. And I think that Sean Payton would really like what he sees here, and I think he'd trade up for that. So now sitting here as well. So Bears now are sitting at number 9. They missed out off the top receivers. They could potentially also go on the defensive line here as well. They've knocked off their quarterback position. But similar take, I think, to why the Falcons trade back. So if you're the Bears, you'll kind of take whatever. I would say. I think so. This is why I think that they're going to trade back and kind of see who falls to them, see who is available. I do believe that they're going to trade back here. And a team I think that they could trade up with is going to be the New Orleans Saints. Their offensive line has been one of the worst of the past couple of seasons. So I think actually that they swap their 14th and the 45th pick for 9 and 75. And the Bears keep kind of moving their way up the board a little bit, trying to get a little bit better talent here. So they move back a little bit, but then pick up a second rounder as well. This is where I think these Saints are going to go with Talise Fuaga here, actually. Solidify that offensive side of the ball, that right side of the offensive line. And so, sorry, making a quick little adjustment here. But I think Talise Fuaga is slowly working up in my book as a clear number 2 tackle. I think it is situational. If a team's looking for a left tackle, then I think that that's going to be the route that they end up going with Olu. But Talise Fuaga, I think overall might be the more polished NFL ready tackle as of right now. So rather see if that's the route that they go. I think it's a win-win for both teams because it's not like the Saints lose a pick; they're just moving back a little bit. But to go and get the offensive lineman that they like, I think that they'll take that in a heartbeat. Here with the Jets, I'm actually going to go with Brock Bowers right there. They've made a lot of offseason moves so far right now with their offensive line, and I think you now go get Brock Bowers here. Add him to a receiving room that is slowly getting better. Got Garrett Wilson already. They did just sign Mike Williams to a 1-year deal. We'll have to kind of see how that'll be. He might. It's kind of almost a very similar situation for Mike Williams here as he was in Los Angeles. Keenan Allen was a Garrett Wilson-esque type receiver, very similar combination. Now you go get Brock Bowers. Now you have a 3-headed monster, and then you still have Breece Hall in the backfield. So I actually think that's going to be the route that they end up going here. Sitting here with Minnesota, they've missed out on the quarterback trade. They missed out on some of the top offensive linemen. They made a bunch of moves already on the defensive side of the ball here. I don't think that they stop. They could potentially go quarterback here if they want to go Bo Nix. I don't think that that's really going to be a good route that they go. I think that they probably lose out in a sweepstakes for J.J. McCarthy to trade up to the Falcons. And so, so I'm actually going to go with Dallas Turner here. I know they've made already a lot of moves on the defensive side of the ball. I can see them maybe going Byron Murphy here a lot of different ways, but I think it's too early for Jackson Powers Johnson. And then maybe at that 23rd pick, maybe we'll see what they do if that's the route that they want to end up going here. So sitting here now with the Atlanta Falcons now with their first pick here. Actually, this is going to be the first time I have them going with a corner. So one of the things, too, obviously you got A.J. Terrell on one side of the ball. He's lockdown corner, one of the best corners in the league. They did get Clark Phillips, who had an impressive second half of the year once we started playing a little bit more with Jeff Okudah going out with some time. They lost Jeff Okudah in free agency. So I actually think they try and solidify the secondary here, and I actually think that they go with Quinion Mitchell, get another outside corner here that they could pair him up with along A.J. Terrell. We'll have to kind of see. I'm curious, Falcons fans, I'm curious on what your thoughts are on that selection here and going that route. They could absolutely go Jared Verse. They could absolutely go Byron Murphy. They could do, honestly, anything defensive side of the ball. Outside of maybe linebacker. That's the only thing I don't think that they would do. So we'll have to end up seeing what happens here. Here with the Las Vegas Raiders, I think Olu falling to them, I think is too good to pass up. I know they already have a left tackle, but I think Olu can switch over to the right side of the ball, replace Jermaine Illuminor, and become the right tackle, and even help give Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell a lot more time running the ball. Or throwing the ball. Here now, the Chicago, they traded back, picked up a second, traded off their third. So this is their second pick of the draft. And second in the first round here. A lot of different routes that they could end up going here. I could see them going Byron Murphy here, but I also do think that they maybe knew they could trade back and know that Brian Thomas Jr. was still going to be there. Now you pair Caleb Williams up with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and now you have Brian Thomas Jr., one of the super athletic receiver here. I think that's going to be a great combination. And now with that second round pick, there's going to be a lot of good defensive line guys I think that they can go and be aggressive with, especially some edge guys like Adisa Isaac or maybe Chris Braswell or who's the other guy? There's another guy I'm blanking on. Chop Robinson. Sorry. Yeah. So we'll have to see. But once again, similar to, I would say, the Falcons as well, they could absolutely go defense very easily. So now at 15, Indianapolis Colts sitting here. They missed out on Brock Bowers, missed out on some of the top receivers. Could maybe go defensive line here, but I actually think that they're going to go with the second corner in this class, going to be Nate Wiggins from Clemson. So I really like kind of how the Colts are shaping up overall, but they need to get a little bit better on the outside in the secondary. I think that's their biggest weakness overall right now. Last pick before I take a quick break here, but Seattle Seahawks, I think you did this pick last time, and I'm actually going to follow up with it. Troy Furtado, I think he's a guy you can move him around the offensive line a bunch, so which I think is going to help out his draft stock a lot. And a team like Seattle, keep him up in Washington. They can kick him inside. If Charles Cross or if Abraham Lucas get hurt, then they can move him out to one of the tackle positions. I think you can just use him anywhere throughout the offensive line here. He's going to provide more versatility than Jackson Powers Johnson. So I'll take a quick break. I'll take a quick water here. Ryan, what do you think so far?
Yeah, let's go back up to the top. I mean, first four, I really like. I like Joe Alt to the Titans. I think maybe the trade, I would say that they're paying the market price there for Joe Alt having to trade up. I don't know who else would really do it. I think they just do it to make sure that nobody else does trade up there. With JJ McCarthy still on the board, they might get outbid, but at that point, like I don't think the Giants are going to do that. They did sign a tackle in free agency. They have 2 tackles that they signed or that they drafted really high already.
Yeah.
So I think that would be interesting. I like JJ to the Broncos. This is one thing I think you touched on when you made this pick was just I don't know where JJ McCarthy is really going to go, because I think you look at his tape and he does certain things well, like in terms of getting the ball out on time, right? Like getting through his progressions. But then I think he has some weaknesses when he's actually throwing the ball like downfield in like some true deep passing scenarios. But he has a lot of the tools that you want in a franchise quarterback. And I think Sean Payton will really like him. To me, JJ McCarthy, his floor is going to be 11 or 12, depending on where Minnesota or Denver fall. And one of them trades up for him. So I really like that. The Fuaga pick I like. I'm a big fan of him. Brock Bowers I like as well. The Jets are in a unique situation because they're buying in right now. Like they're trying to win a Super Bowl in 2024, and like they don't really care about 25 or 26. Like that's kind of a moot point.
Well, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be vice president, by 25. So I mean, it's like they got 2024, and like that's it.
Yeah.
So I'm just playing. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
I like the Dallas Turner pick. The Vikings do kind of miss out on the quarterback parade there. I definitely think if they want to address it, 23 would be the spot. And then I like Quinyon Mitchell across from AJ Terrell. This is probably the Fashanu pick is probably my least favorite, just because it is so hard to go from left tackle to right tackle and right tackle to left tackle. It's almost like learning to write with the other hand. And so I'm not saying it can't be done. I just think you already look at some of the problems that Fashanu has and why he's not widely considered a top 10 pick anymore with his power, right? He doesn't always have the most solid, or with his ability to handle power, he doesn't always have the most solid base. I just think putting him on the right side is going to magnify those issues even more, because he's going to be slower and having to think more as he relearns all the techniques. So that's an interesting one there. I definitely think if you're just going best player available, he probably is the best player on the board there. So just like an interesting take there. Brian Thomas Jr. I like. Nate Wiggins is a great fit. Fatanu, he has the length to play guard or to play tackle in the NFL, but he definitely could play guard. He has the strength and people moving ability that you would want there at guard.
It's just gonna be so fascinating. Like even that to basically Brian Thomas Jr. Falling out of the top 20. And so where does Olu fall? Because like you make great points. So it's gonna be interesting to see. Let's get started out here on the second half as well. And so with Jacksonville, I think a guy like Cooper DeJean, I think they just need an athletic guys out of the secondary. And so I think you go put him there. He can be outside. You can move him to nickel. You can potentially even move him to strong safety if that's going to be his best spot. So here sitting at Cincinnati at 18, I have to go with Byron Murphy here. They did end up losing DJ Reader. And so I think that they're going to try and keep a nice, strong interior. He's now the clear-cut number one defensive interior guy on the line. So sitting here now at Los Angeles Rams at 19. Byron Murphy falls to them. They could absolutely go with them, trying to replace Aaron Donald here. I do think that they're going to continue with the defensive line, though, and go with Jared Verse. I'm trying to get good continued edge rusher pressure on them. I think anywhere on the defensive line they can go here. So this has been a pick I've done pretty consistently now. I have JPJ, center, going to Pittsburgh. It's starting to make a little bit more and more sense now with the moves that they're making with Russell Wilson. They're going to want to try and beef up that offensive line. They're starting to, I would say, kind of start to put some of their chips into the middle here. And so I will say, I think Steelers made out like an absolute bandit here. They got Russell Wilson for $1.2 million. They got Justin Fields for a conditional 6 in 2025, could be a 4th. If Justin Fields comes in and just starts absolutely blowing it up, you can cut Russell Wilson like like without even thinking about it. And like, this is our
yeah.
guy here, so I think they're going to be in a great spot with that QB position here. And they've already upgraded. Even I know Russell Wilson's been in the news a lot over the past couple of years. Already upgraded, I would say, over Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here at 21, I'm going to go with J.C. Latham, offensive tackle here. Just a super athletic guy, and I think with the type of style that they're wanting to go, I think that could be a route that they go. But I could also see potentially still Jatavian Sanders could fall in there. I could maybe see Xavier Worthy just with his overall speed. Mike McDaniel's being really excited. They were at his pro day and just seeing like this is going to be the guy that we want to have. Brian Thomas Jr. falls to them. Can see them still going receiver here. This is another team. All the chips are in the middle now. Like, do not care about 2025 here. Like, they want to try and win it this year. I think going with an offensive line route and continuing to keep bolstering up and protecting Tua, but also protecting the run game, getting other athletic guys out there so they can try and be as healthy as possible going into December, January, and potentially even February as well. So at 22 here, I have the Eagles actually going with Laiatu Latu. It's looking like Hassan Reddick might be leaving the team as well. And then with just kind of where the organization is going, I'll be completely honest, it's probably a horrible pick. I don't really know. It's just because the Eagles, I feel like, could go in so many different directions. If JPJ falls to them, do they want to get another sure starter center and keep Cam Jurgens in the guard position here and just go from there? Do they want to go corner again, even though they've already addressed the corner position a lot in free agency? So many different ways the Eagles could end up going here. If Brian Thomas Jr. falls to them, do they go receiver, and try and bolster that up? So here at 23, Minnesota, I do have them going with Bo Nix here. I believe that they're going to see the value in other players at 11 that they couldn't trade up. I'm sure they're going to be making a bunch of calls like, what do you need? They're probably not going to want to give up the whole house and the rest of their future, I would say, just to go get a rookie quarterback, because we're kind of seeing how that has potentially progressed with some teams and how they manage their draft picks, i.e. Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. So if they don't get the trade that they want, maybe stay put, try and go get a Dallas Turner or another guy that they really like, and then take a shot on Bo Nix here, or Michael Penix, any of the other guys that they feel might be a good fit. So at 24 here, I have the Dallas Cowboys going with Tyler Guyton. They ended up losing Tyron Smith in free agency, so potentially get a guy here they could go replace him with. Keep Tyler Smith at left guard. He's one of the best left guards in the league, and they're just kind of replenish the offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys. Once again, so many different routes, very similar to the Eagles. I think there's so many different routes that they could end up going there. Sitting here now, Green Bay Packers at number 25. Terry Arnold, cornerback. I know that they've probably already made a bunch of moves in the secondary as well. I could maybe even go safety here, go Tyler Nubin. I still think that they're just going to keep on throwing pieces at the secondary. As honestly, really, if I look at this team, they can improve the offensive line a little bit. I agree with PFF there. But in general, though, this team is looking very solid for 2024. So I know they did end up losing John Runyon in free agency, so maybe they'll address the interior offensive line later on in the draft because there's a lot of good second round, third round interior offensive line guys. So Tampa Bay, literally they could go in absolutely any direction here. I actually have them going with Peyton Wilson here, linebacker. I think it's just a little bit different pick, but they could go Tyler Nubin, they could go Grant Barton, they could go Jersey Newton if they want. Actually, Jersey Newton might be the only one they don't go because they got Vita Vea. So I think they're fine on the defensive interior. That might be the only position, that and quarterback. So, but even receiver as well. I mean, I know Mike Evans extended, but that was just for 2 years. You go get a first-round receiver here and try and develop. You can go and have him for another 3 years if Mike Evans retires after his second year of the contract. So, sitting here now at Arizona, they can go so many different directions. They got what's his name, Marvin Harrison Jr. earlier on. I'm actually going to end up going with Kool-Aid McKinstry here, address that cornerback position. They could go Jersey Newton. They could absolutely go with another potential edge rusher here. They could go Marius Mims if they wanted to address the tackle position. But they did actually just sign somebody, if I'm remembering correctly, on the tackle position that was really big. Jonah Williams. So that's where I think that they're going to be probably wait to address the offensive line spot because they also re-signed Elijah Wilkinson and Tristan Colon. They even signed Evan Brown to a 1-year deal. So for free agency, they bolstered up the offensive line a lot. And one position that they did sign Sean Murphy-Bunting, help out the quarterback position. But I think here, just keep adding some good young talent. And a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry, though he's fallen a little bit, but I think he potentially could be a guy that they could move to safety as well. So,
Yeah.
but that's something that they'll end up deciding. Once again, too, when you get into these mid to late 20s, so many different routes that these teams specifically can go. Same thing now with the Buffalo Bills. I think a lot of different routes that they can go here. But if I go and look at what they've done so far on the offseason, they've already signed Taron Johnson, they've re-signed Cam Lewis, Mike Edwards, and then re-signed Taylor Rapp as well. So they've already kind of re-signed some of the players that they've cut in some of those positions at the secondary spot. They absolutely could go secondary as well. Maybe Tyler Nubin is still on the board. But I'm actually going to go with Jerson Newton here. I think him falling all the way down to 28. They have a lot of holes still to fill on the defensive interior. They did sign DaQuan Jones as well, but that is I think they're still going to need some more depth overall. One of the best parts of this Bills defense last year was their ability to get to the quarterback, both with the defensive interior and also on the edge rusher side. So you go get a guy like Jerson Newton, who at the beginning of this whole offseason, and us all started doing mock drafts, he was a potential top 10 pick. I still think there's a bunch of talent there. It's just, I think other guys, a lot of other good film has come out on the other guys, nothing against Jerson Newton. So I think he can come in and be an immediate impact from day one. So I have mixed feelings on this trade, but I haven't done a Carolina Panthers pick, I think, in a long time or ever. But I do have them trading up here and going and getting Ladd McConkey, trading with Detroit. Detroit, I feel like you could trade back and get a couple more picks. I actually have them going with 33 and 101 for 29 and 201. Not interested in this trade. That's okay. We're the commissioners in this draft here. So I have to go with Ladd McConkey here. If I go look at what the Carolina Panthers have done so far on the receiving room as well, obviously they traded for Deontay Johnson. Then they signed David Moore to the free agent deal. But I think if I go look at their team right now, you have Adam Thielen, then you have Deontay Johnson and Jonathan Mingo as well. I think you go get a guy like Ladd McConkey, who technically right now Adam Thielen is technically a slot receiver on the depth chart. I think Thielen can be kind of moved around whenever. I think a guy like Ladd McConkey is a guy that Bryce Young can like lean on throughout. I think kind of be his Tank Dell to CJ Stroud, if that makes sense. No offense to Bryce Young, I know he probably doesn't want to hear any CJ Stroud comparisons. But I think that's what he needs, just because if you go look at the team last year, and I'm really glad too, towards the second half of the season, Bryce Young was getting a lot of respect of people watching film and being like, look, Bryce Young could be doing better, but where do you want him to throw the ball to? Like all of his receivers are covered because they're either old or slow or both. So
it also doesn't help your offensive coordinator or your offensive head coach gets fired 11 games into the year.
Well, but he rightfully so got fired.
No.
He didn't get fired.
I agree, but that just shows how poor the offense was.
Completely agree. Offensive line was trash. Running back room, well, running back's only going to be as good as your offensive line. But receivers were trash. I mean, outside of Adam Thielen, I would say, but also at the same time, too, they just weren't the receiving room that they wanted to have. And I will say, even, too, to be completely honest, I don't know what Deontay Johnson's really going to bring overall. That's going to be significantly better than what they already had. They've made good moves, in my opinion, on addressing the offensive line to help out overall. I think trading up, trying to just go get a guy like Ladd McConkey, a guy that they can go and lean on. And he potentially could not be there. You go look at the Ravens, the Niners, and the Chiefs. All three of those teams, I think, are going to be looking for receivers. I know they PFF doesn't have them here as the team needing a receiver, but a bunch talks about Brandon Ayuk being traded. Deebo Samuel gets hurt a decent bit, so maybe are they going to want another kind of shift receiver that they could help take a couple of reps away from him just so they can maybe last longer in the season. So I think this is a very realistic trade that the Panthers go up. They also go get that fifth-year option on Ladd McConkey as well. Moving on now to Baltimore Ravens here. Kind of as I said, it's going to be a consistent theme on what I just mentioned, that some of these teams could take receivers here. I actually have them going with A.D. Mitchell here. The Ravens, I think, could go a lot of different directions. They could go edge, could go corner here. I think still sitting a guy like A.D. Mitchell, if you go look at what the Ravens need to do to take the next step, is they need to go get a guy kind of, I would say, opposite of Zay Flowers here, but still has that great explosive capabilities. I think A.D. Mitchell fits that realm right there perfectly for them. San Francisco here, I think a guy like Graham Barton falling all the way down here address that offensive line, especially on the interior offensive line, which is where he's going to be kicking in. I think that's going to be a perfect fit. And lastly here for Kansas City Chiefs, I have them going with the receiver here, but he is a national champion receiver. I have them going with Roman Wilson. I know there's a bunch of talk with Xavier Worthy potentially going here. I think if you go look at a guy like Roman Wilson here, similar reason to why I think the Panthers would want to go get Ladd McConkey. I think actually, honestly, like Ladd McConkey would work great in a Patrick Mahomes-led offense because they can kind of use him like Tyreek Hill. Obviously, Tyreek Hill has that speed, but McConkey has that ability to create his own separation. And what I saw from Roman Wilson going up against some of the top corners in the country over this past season, you look at his games against Ohio State, look at the Alabama game, and then even then too the national championship game. He didn't really need to do as much because Michigan ran the ball all over Washington, but that's a separate conversation. I still think he has good separation capabilities. I think he'd be a great compliment to Rashee Rice and also Travis Kelce as well, and start to kind of keep rebuilding that receiver room. Maybe a little early, but he's not going to make it to their second pick. So I think if he's a guy that they really like on that board, I think you can go ahead and take him there. So that's my 6 mock draft. Ryan, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already went through the first 16 picks. I'll start, here at 17. Cooper DeJean, I think, makes a lot of sense. Byron Murphy makes a lot of sense. I mean, a lot of these picks in the second half, I really agree with. I think that's a perfect spot for Bo Nix. I think, would thrive in that system with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. Because those guys, they're going to get open. They're going to be in the right spot. They have experience in that Kevin O'Connell offense, which has a lot of timing. And it's going to allow Bo Nix to utilize his skill set, right? And not have to be Superman.
Yeah.
Where, like, if he were to go to a team like New England, like let's say New England trades back and then like with Minnesota, and then they pick him here at 23, I think that puts a lot more pressure on a guy like Bo Nix, who I think could do it, but hasn't shown it at a super high level to be the guy that elevates like everyone around him. So
yeah,
I like that fit. Tyler Guyton. So I know I was a little critical of the Olu Fashanu pick for this exact reason, but it is hard for right tackles to go play left tackle. I'm not as worried about that with Tyler Guyton for 2 reasons. One, he is as elite of an athlete at the tackle position as I think you could get. He was a former tight end. Now he's 6'7", 330, has elite length, right? But he's also still super, super raw on that right side. And so I use that, like teaching a guy that writes left-handed how to write right-handed is really hard to do. Well, right now, nobody's really taught Tyler Guyton how to write right now. And so, like, you're just going to kind of have to, like, he's going to need to be coached up. But all the physical talent is there. You're going to have to teach him the ins and outs of the position either way.
Yeah.
If that, I don't know if that analogy makes sense, but and so I really like that fit there. They need the left tackle. Tyler Smith could play left tackle, but I think he is better at the guard spot. Yeah, I mean, all the other picks I really like. Another guy here, I think for Kansas City that would be really interesting would be Xavier Legette. I think you look at his physical traits, just being 6'1", 223 with the 4.39 40. And he had the fastest 20-yard burst, I guess. It's like the final 20 yards of the 40. So they have the 10-yard split, which is the first 10, which he was obviously really good at, running a 4.39. But then he was the fastest guy at the combine from yards 20 to 40. And so just thinking about his breakaway speed, I think is something that would be really enticing for Kansas City.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
no, and that's where it's just going to be so fascinating. I mean, we had Bo Nix go 23. That's not the best example, but it's like, so we had Cooper Jean go 17. I could see him falling down to 29, 30. You know, it's just going to be on where these teams value these guys on their boards and who falls out. And that's why when I go back and look at that Tennessee trade is who knows what teams are going to – like teams don't really value their picks. I don't want to say this. I think teams look at their picks as assets to just go and get a guy. So if a guy equals the amount of assets, obviously, and that's kind of what the draft chart is. So for the Titans, like for example, in that trade, how I looked at it is a guy that you're going to draft at 104 going to provide a significant more impact than Joe Alt is going to be? Probably not. So like, let's just go ensure that we go get this guy. If there's nobody that we like at our second round pick, maybe we can trade back and try and go get another fourth, just kind of recoup some of that capital. And I think that's how teams really look at that. Same thing then too with Denver as well. Be like, if we think that JJ McCarthy's the guy that we can kind of build around and mold around over these next couple of years, losing then these day 3 picks is not going to mean much of anything, because a lot of times those guys are not going to go work out. A lot of guys don't work out anyways. So I think that's just kind of the mentality of, especially too, if I go look at this draft last year and how many trades were made, and there were a bunch of trades, especially in day 2 and then early day 3, people trying to move things around. So it's just going to be fascinating to go and see. It's kind of really almost hard to try and predict a lot of those trades. Well, it's obviously very hard to predict the future, but you can make, in my mind, so many of these trades would make sense. Like, I want to go trade up and go get this guy or have guys move back.
Yeah.
It's just going to be very interesting to see how this draft works.
Yeah, and that's where, like, just this draft class as a whole, and I feel like I say this in every single mock draft, the guy that goes at, like, realistically, I could see Brock Bowers going at 5 to the Chargers. I could also see him going at 15 to the Colts. Quinion Mitchell, I mean, teams could have him really high on their boards and he could be the top corner off the board, or he could go down at 27, like where Kool-Aid McKinstry went. And then I think you start looking at the guys like Jackson Powers Johnson. Historically, interior offensive linemen have fallen, right? Unless your name's Cole Strange. And like John Michael Schmitz last year, I was so certain that he was going to be a first round pick. He ends up going, I think, at the end of the second. And so like, it's how these teams value guys. Another thing that I don't think we don't do as good of a job as the teams of finding players that fit their scheme, but like teams are going to prefer players over others, and just because of the schemes that they're going to want to run. And I think that is going to play a big part in this, especially when you have guys that are going to be so close in talent, because realistically, there's not a big difference, in my opinion, from A.D. Mitchell to Xavier Legette. And then, like, there's really not even that big of a difference from Xavier Legette to, like, Brendan Rice, right? Like, obviously they have different skill sets, but, like,
the value that they bring to the team
is going to be, I think, about the
minimal.
same. Yeah. And so it's going to be an very interesting draft, because this isn't the typical year where after the first 10, 12 picks, you have that drop off in blue chip talent.
Absolutely.
So all right. Well, that was Tyler's mock draft. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of Tyler's mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you do differently? And on that, we'll see you guys next time.